Conversations podcast.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode of Ask Ngati series. So NAATI and All Graduates have collaborated in an initiative that aims to provide information to practitioners from a Ngati representative, so from the horse's mouth, so to say. And last Friday of each month, a panel of Ngati managers will be answering questions that interpreters and translators have sent through using an online form that can be found on the Ngati website, as well as the Conversations Interpreting and Translating website. All you have to do is fill in the form and you send your questions through. And on behalf of you, I will ask them to the Ngati panel. Now, the session will be recorded and published on the Ngati YouTube channel, as well as the Conversations Interpreting and Translating YouTube channel. And you can access these episodes the last Friday of each month. And of course, please don't forget to subscribe to both the Ngati YouTube channel, as well as the Conversations Interpreting and Translating YouTube channel and other podcast channels. On the Ngati panel today, I am very lucky to have quite a large panel. We have Chief Executive Officer Mark Painting. Hello, Mark. Welcome.
Hello, Fatih. Thank you.
We have Certification Policy and Development Manager Aurelie Sheehan. Aurelie, welcome.
Thank you, Fatih.
National Operations Manager Michael Nemarich. Michael, welcome.
Okay, thank you.
And also Communications Manager Tony Murray. Tony, welcome.
Thank you, Fatih.
Thank you all for joining me today. And before we get stuck into the questions, I'd like to just introduce Mark Painting again, who will give us a few words as well. Mark, all yours.
Thank you very much, Fatih. Congratulations again on this initiative, and thank you to everyone who's taken some time to send some questions through. We're really pleased to be able to respond, and we'd encourage people to, anything they're not sure about, ask at any time, if not directly, then through this forum, and we'll continue to be here and answer as long as people still have questions to ask. So thank you for doing that. And before we get into the questions, what we'll do today, we'll respond, any one of us, depending on the topic, as to who's best placed to respond. Individuals just bearing questions that our responses will be generic in terms of the current policy settings and situation at the time. But if anyone has some very unique personal circumstances, it's better to take them up with us directly. So the responses we'll give today will be general, and they'll cover most situations, almost all situations. But there might be a couple of very exceptional circumstances where individuals may want to take something up with us directly. But we'll be happily respond. So thank you.
And well done, and thank you all again for joining me today. All right, let's get started, because we've got quite a few questions to get through. First question is, how do I get a Ngati certification?
All right. To get a Ngati certification, require to sit and pass a Ngati certification test. Details are available on our website, which I'll probably say a few times throughout this, but very short training that meets the prerequisites of taking the test. So a minimum of 40 AQF hours of training. And then if it's an endorsed qualification, that's all the requirements. If it's not an endorsed qualification, also require intercultural and ethical competency tests and English proficiency demonstration.
Wonderful, very good. How do I become a recognised interpreter? What are the pathways?
Okay, so just for terminology, recognised practicing interpreter or recognised practicing translator are both available in languages where we don't offer certification testing. Assuming that the person wanting recognition can't be tested in their primary language, it's still the same training requirements, which is a minimum of 40 AQF hours, English and ethics and intercultural training if it's not an endorsed qualification. And then because it's recognition, we can't test to determine proficiency. So we look for evidence of work practice in addition to the training, and that will allow for recognition. And people that have become recognised practicing interpreters or translators also have the same recertification requirements as certified practitioners and have the same duties as per the code of conduct, the code of ethics. And that 3-year recertification cycle of going through PD and maintaining language skills.
I guess I'll add to that question. Thank you very much, Michael. How can they access these, the courses, the endorsed courses to get this certification?
Yeah, so on our website, there's under Become an Interpreter or Become a Translator, there is a section for training providers and a list of endorsed qualifications.
Thank you. I think this is another one for you, Michael. Can you apply for recognised practicing interpreter if your LOT is a tested language?
The short answer is no. The slightly longer answer is potentially if we're unable to offer the test within a period of 12 months or over. Most testing is available quite frequently now. We've got a full test calendar available and dates able to be seen even without signing up on the website under Find a Test Date up until July 2022. So you should be able to find dates. But yeah, in the unlikely event that we are unable to offer one of those languages that we do test in for more than 12 months, then recognition may be possible.
Thank you very much. Now, just this one is also from a Farsi interpreter. I know you've already just answered this. How often do you conduct translation testing? Is it depending on language? Is it depending on applications?
It's largely dependent on demand. With Farsi, which we identify as Persian for our testing purposes, it's every quarter. So we've got January, April, July, and October next year, all with tests for translation. So we run translation tests in blocks about 4 times a year. The high demand languages are 4 times a year. The lower demand languages are once or twice a year, depending on which one it is.
I guess that also can go towards the question, why does it take so long to get a test date for my language? And this is a recognized practicing interpreter from Malayalam language.
Yeah, so there's a couple of answers to this. The first one is there's over 200 languages spoken in Australia and over 7,000 in the world. It's physically impossible, I think, for any company to have been able to do the breadth and scope of all of those languages. In a previous podcast with you, I discussed on the day, it's up to 7 people involved in just the individual candidate. So there is a demand side of it, where we have a lot of resources that go into testing on the day. So that for languages such as Thai, for example, that we test once a year at CPI level, it's a demand-led calendar. For other languages, it's about how many people in Australia that speak it, how many people that we can get for role players and as examiners. So there are some languages that we just won't be able to offer as much as we want to try and do as much as we can, hence why we have recognised practicing as an opportunity for people where we can't test in that language. Very specifically in the question for Malayalam, it's the 28th largest language in Australia, and it's a growing one, but it's not being tested at that level before. And so it takes time for us to build a panel of people with the required experience in testing and setting and academia to maintain or to create the test and to be able to examine it. So we've just created a panel in a non-professional test for Malayalam, and we hope to offer that in coming years.
Thank you, Michael. Look, I'll let you catch your breath for a little while. I think this one's for you, Aurelie.
Yep.
How many points do I need for recertification? And I'll follow that with another one. How do I get PD points?
Yeah, well, look, you need a minimum of 120 points to recertify over a period of 3 years. At the moment, you only require 80 points, and that's due to the adjustments we made for this year, considering the current context, so it's a little bit less. But you do need 120 points, and that's a minimum of 30 points per category. So there are 3 categories in our PD catalog. The first one is the skills and development and knowledge category, and then the industry engagement category, and finally the maintenance of language. So we aim at asking 30 points for each of them minimum, and then the applicant can reach 120 points in different ways across those 3 categories. And the next part of the question was, how do I get PD points, right? So there's a variety of activities practitioners can undertake to gain these points across all categories. Under development and skill development and knowledge, they can attend PD events organized by OSIT, for instance, some workshops, either in the TNI field or related to the activities. They can undertake some online or face-to-face training. They can also be a member of a professional association that also attracts points. Under the second category, it's more around industry engagement. So they can, for instance, be part of a professional association like OSIT and be involved as a volunteer in a local branch, for instance. They can also write articles or present at conferences, that kind of things. In the second category, there's also a requirement to do at least one activity in ethics. And that can be, again, through a PD event or through writing an article about ethics in the profession, for instance, that kind of activities. And finally, for language maintenance, again, the range of activities is quite broad. Some obvious ones are spending some time in their load countries. Less obvious ones might be, watching a podcast in the language as well, which would attract points as well. So the range is quite broad. I can't list them all, but I'd recommend to our practitioners to have a look at the NAATI website and the PD catalog, where they can see all the details of those activities. They can also add activities that are not listed in the catalog, but relevant to what they've been doing. So.
That's right. I think it's quite important for practitioners to download the catalogue. It's downloadable on the NAATI website as a PDF and just really read through it. And there's a lot that they're probably already doing that they might not even fully know that they can claim. Right. So here's one of them, for example. I have bought and read a book to develop my interpreting skills. Which category is this under?
So that would fall under the first category, which is skill development and knowledge. We don't have an item as such for that particular activity. However, there is there is an item in this category, which is 1.11, I think, which is basically a blank category which practitioners can use to add any additional activities they have undertaken for that particular category of the catalog. So they would add it there, and when they log this activity in their NAATI portal, they would have to give some details about the book, the references, but also a little blurb explaining why this book was relevant to their practice. They can also provide a receipt if they have it to justify that they have purchased the book, for instance, if that is something they have available.
And I guess especially with COVID these days, it might be a little harder for people to travel back home.
That's right.
Into their load countries. So, activities like this could be probably seen much more over the next year or so.
Exactly.
As a general principle, Fatih, we should mention that we're very open and encourage all sorts of activity, and it's really up to the practitioner to take responsibility and control of their own professional development. And we see the catalogue as not so much a list of specific items, but broad headings that people, what we say is if anything you do, it is relevant. It's just a matter of finding where it's better recorded. But we want to sort of take a more open approach and encourage as much activity as possible.
And I think people generally, I find that have quite a lot of questions about recertification and PD and how to claim it. And Aurelie and myself, we did do a webinar on this, which is
Okay.
on the NAATI YouTube channel, as well as the Conversations YouTube channel. So even for further detail, practitioners can log on and watch those videos as well. Okay, so let's see who this one's for. I've got a feeling this might be for you, Mark. How could NAATI better the TNI profession and professional practice when it comes to following up with agencies that use bilingual workers as interpreters for established languages? Could you specify actions, steps, and strategies that you have or about to have in place to address such issues? I think with this, when they're saying bilingual, maybe it's non-accredited people.
Yeah. Thanks, Fatih. I think, I agree. I'm interpreting that as basically people who are being engaged or, as interpreters who are clearly not interpreters, or certainly not certified by NAATI as to be working. And it's a very, very topical issue and a real challenge, not so much, as much for NAATI as the whole profession, really. You probably know, most people know, that all of the jurisdictions in Australia have policies that outline the requirements for NAATI certification to work as a translator or interpreter in Australia. Unfortunately, it's not always the case that the compliance with those policies are in place, and the practice you talk about is unfortunate, and it undermines the profession, and something that we continue to struggle with. Of course, we can do a bit, but it's not NAATI's own problem, and we have to keep, because we don't have authority over either governments or language service providers. Our certification system is to certify individuals, and the relationship we have through the system is with individuals. We don't have authority, like I said, over language service providers and their activities. But what we can do, and what we have been doing, is engaging with the relevant government departments and their policies to try and encourage them to take more active compliance effort with their own policies around that. And we're working with in one particular jurisdiction at the moment, but we continue to work with them as required to make sure that they're doing their bit and asking the right questions, and therefore that language service providers comply with those policies as part of their contract with government.
Mark, can I ask you a question about this? Do you think informing the non-English speaker about what NAATI and what NAATI certification is also important? Because then they can ask their interpreter, are you NAATI certified?
Thanks, Fatih. That's a really, really good point. We clearly need to do more work around our education and awareness outside of the traditional industry, but to those areas that actually are the consumers of interpreting services, and in particular the health sector and the legal sector. So there's hospitals and courts, and if we can make them understand why it is important to use certified professionals, and how it reduces the risk and will lead to better outcomes, that'll be a lot better. And of course, we need to make more aware of our the ability to verify those credentials online as well. So you're dead right, and we need to do more of that education and awareness with those large consumer areas.
Very good, thank you. I like this question. Can we include the NAATI logo on our business cards?
Yeah, that's a very interesting one at the moment. Technically, the official answer is no, because of the protection of the logo and everything else. However, we think we have got to come up with a solution, because we want to encourage people who are obviously people who are certified or hold a certification from NAATI to be able to do so. And we need to work on something that gives those certified professionals the ability to advertise it accordingly. So whilst we don't want, we take our trademark in our logo very seriously, we also want to make it available. So we'll need to do some work next year, or maybe some version of a practitioner type logo that is personalized to the individual. So including the NAATI logo, but having someone's CPN, for example, their certified practitioner number, included in it, because we only want people using it who are duly certified. That's and right. If anyone who's certified will have a certified practitioner number, and so that will make it unique to them.
AUSIT, for example, when you become an AUSIT member, they give you an email signature, and it's specifically for you. And I love to put that into my little signature with my interpreting and translating signature. So something maybe along those lines, you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. I think we'll work towards something like that, and we'll talk to our good friends at Ausit about theirs and see how we can do something similar.
Very good indeed. This one is an interesting one. It's about the transitioning from accreditation to certification. I would like to transition from the old accreditation system, but I have not completed the required hours or assignments in the last 3 years. What should I do?
Well, I'll just clarify that if I think I understand this right. So the period of being able to transition an old accreditation credential was essentially open for 3 years. It was 3 years for people that had that old credential to choose to transition it. Technically, that period has now closed. Right. Now, if someone we're all about encouraging people being included in the profession, and especially if someone's actively working in it, then we prefer to have them in the system. So, like I said at the start, if the generic response might be different, and it might be it's not 100% clear whether if someone is talking about their work requirements, because that might apply even if you're already certified. So, if someone is not yet transitioned, we would ask them to perhaps approach us directly, maybe email info@NAATI with their specifics, or get in touch with us so that we can confirm that they are in fact working and active in the profession, and we'll have a look at their situation.
Okay, so are you happy for me to pass this information to because I've got the details of the asker.
If you've got the individual, then you can even they can contact one of us directly, and we'll have a look at their circumstances.
I'll get you introduced.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, wonderful. Now this one's about translation tests and it going online. Now the question is from a Sinhalese translator. Do you plan to offer offline translation tests next year?
Yeah, if necessary, we can organise something. We can organise for a candidate to go into one of our offices potentially, but it's certainly not our preference. The move to translation tests online has opened up accessibility of the test. It's improved security. But the other thing it does is it frees up our test venues to allow us to do more interpreting tests. So our preference is definitely to do it online. However, if there's a technical constraint or another extraordinary circumstance which would require it to be in person, we can certainly work with individuals on that.
Very good, thank you. Here's one from a Persian interpreter. How do I sit the next level exam?
So if they're a CPI holder at the moment, there's two ways to get a pathway to certified interpreter. The first one is if you've been a CPI practitioner for 3 years or above, you meet the prerequisites to apply for the CI, or they could do, prior to that 3-year mark, they could do more advanced training, and that would also make them eligible. So it's about no different than CPI, meeting the prerequisites for the test and then booking in for the test.
Very good, thank you. This one's also for you, Michael. There's a few of those.
Yep.
I would like to sit for the testing from LOT to English, but my training was from English to LOT. I have been practicing translation for a couple of years now. Am I able to sit for the test without having to go through the training again? Thank you. And this is from a Mandarin translator.
Yes, is the short answer to that one. The training, we don't distinguish between, even though we test in one direction or the other, the training we consider suitable for both test types. And if they already hold certified translator, they would be eligible for the other test.
Straightforward, very good. Here's another one. This one's a bit long, so bear with me. I have been on the waiting list for about a year to upgrade my certification, to upgrade my accreditation from certified provisional to certified level. I am keenly interested to know, will this test be available? Although I am cognizant that NAATI is considering certain mechanisms to be worked out before such test is scheduled for any potential candidates. For example, the availability of enough applicants and the specific languages that are in demand. My humble question is, would NAATI be able to give my application a second look given its lengthy period of waiting time and giving credit to my individual need for testing? This is a Somali interpreter.
Yeah, so it's, I mean, very specifically for Somali, it's quite a low demand language, and there's, you know, according to the last census in 2016, only 16,000 people that speak Somali. So although it's a sizable community, it's not a large one. And for that language specifically, it'll be a while, if at all, that we'll be able to test at a CI level for it. The demand's just not strong enough at this stage.
Might be just worth adding to that, Fatih, that as well. Whilst I understand it's unfortunate for an individual that holds, that CPI level that they can't get the higher one, neither can anyone else. So in terms of, whilst we understand that frustration, it's also important to say that at least they're not disadvantaged compared to the rest of the profession in that same language.
Now,
no one else can get it either.
What if they were to team up and put an application in, maybe 20, 30 of them? Is that what, like when we say demand, how much is demand?
Yeah, we can't put a number on it, but clearly the more demand there is, well, first you have to meet the eligibility requirements. And so, you know, if there was a sufficient number of people in a certain language, then that's part of the criteria we would look at to start testing in that language.
Very good, thank you. Aurelie, I've got one for you now. This one's a bit of a curveball at you. See how you can deal with this one, because by the looks of it, the practitioner is running out of time quite rapidly. So I hope they watch this ASAP. I was unaware of the PD requirements until recently. Can I start collecting points now? My certifications expire on the 1st of February 2021.
Right. So yes, they don't have much time left, but the good news is that they can start collecting points now. It's not too late. However, we do encourage practitioners to try to collect points, you know, on a regular basis over the 3-year period rather than right at the end. But they can basically start collecting them at any point in time during their certification period.
Yep, very good. So get on it straight away. But ideally, we want to, because, you know, we say about average it to be 40 points every year. Right?
That's right. Yeah. So that's the ideal scenario. Sometimes there are some personal circumstances which prevent that to happen, and it's a bit of a case-by-case basis in a way. But they can certainly start collecting points later in their recertification period. But from a practice point of view, it's ideal to do it on a regular basis, so you maintain your skills regularly rather than right at the end to meet the requirements.
That's right, and lucky for this practitioner, the requirements have gone down to 80 points because of COVID. Okay, so
that's right.
They do have a bit of a chance, right?
Yes.
All right, wonderful. This one is from a Chichewa speaking practitioner. How do I get training when there is no training in my language?
The RMIT, TAFE South Australia, and Balwell International College in Perth all offer the what we call the skill set, which is 4 or 5 units from the Diploma of Interpreting and Translating. They're able to offer that qualification in multiple languages. And in the first instance, we would suggest to that aspiring candidate to contact one of those institutions to see if that was possible. So I know that they constantly add languages, and not dissimilarly to us, where there is demand, that they look to meet that.
So I teach in the skill set course as well. It is a non-language specific course. So there is no language related units in there. So it's open to each and every language out there. So you're definitely right. The skill set course, that 10-week short course, and like you said, RMIT, is it TAFE SA? I think New South Wales TAFE also does it. Again, they can access this information from the NAATI website. So anyone whose language is not offered in a program somewhere can definitely do the skill set course, because that is non-language specific. I think if they do the research, some tertiary institutions also offer non-language specific programs. I don't know exactly which ones, but I have done a little bit of research on this. Some of them also offer some other programs that are non-language specific as well.
Yeah, they do. I think for the most part, they are more geared toward post-certification training, like professional development type things in most cases. But you're right, though, the skill set is non-language specific, so, and it's available pretty much to anyone. So we definitely encourage to have a look at that. And
then going on from after getting the recognised practitioner credentials, then pretty much all the webinars or most of the webinars and training that's offered post-certification, like you say, is non-language specific anyway.
Yep.
All right, wonderful. Oh, here's another one that might take us a few hours to answer if we were to talk about it. All right, it's about the work conditions and pay rates of interpreters. How can we improve, or is there any improvement for interpreters' work conditions and rates?
Thanks, Fatih. And yeah, you're right. This one we could talk about for a long time. Again, this continues to be a challenge for the profession, for the entire profession. Again, not something NAATI has necessarily direct control of, but we are certainly happy to work with other key stakeholders, Audit Professionals Australia, courts and others, to try and make improvements there. The reality is that the gradual decline in pay and conditions over it has declined over decades, so it's not going to be an absolute quick fix. Whilst we're very pleased with the introduction of the certification system that we think will help, it's not going to be magic, and it's not going to magically fix all these challenges overnight. But the more we can talk about translating and interpreting as a profession that looks like normal professions, where you have training and education requirements, where you have ongoing professional development, those sorts of things will gradually help paint the picture and get more professional respect from other professions that interpreters work with to start that process. So yeah, there's definitely no quick fix for this. It's going to take something, like I said, a challenge for the entire sector, and one that we all need to play a bit of a part on. The first part, people can make sure they can do individually is maintain their own professional standards of quality and professionalism, and that will help other key stakeholders to try and advocate for that cause as well.
Yes, I think you're definitely right on that one. Thank you very much, Mark. Okay, here's one. A French certified provisional interpreter has asked, I have been an interpreter since 1999, and I would like to upgrade my qualification to certified interpreter and translator. What do I need to do, please? My certification expires in January 2021.
Okay, so assuming they'll recertify in January 2021 as a CPI, and with that length of time previously in the accreditation system, they would be eligible to go for the certified interpreter test now. So it will just be about putting in an application and then sitting the next certified interpreter test. For French certified interpreter, we run tests twice a year. For the translation, the translating requires those slightly different skills. So training for in translating units and then applying would be the way to go for that. And French CT tests are run 4 times a year. So a couple of additional units of training, but then would be eligible to sit.
All right, very good. Thanks for that. Another one on testing. I would like to upgrade from provisional interpreter, or certified provisional interpreter, to certified interpreter in Burmese, but there is no exam. I have signed up to an EOI, but until now there is still no test. How can I proceed, as I would like to apply for migration as a skilled worker?
Yeah, so there are 2 parts to this. The first part goes with some of the other questions we've answered. At the moment, we don't have the CI Burmese test available because of a lack of demand. from potential candidates. The secondary part, though, is that certified provisional interpreter is suitable for migration purposes, and if the practitioner contacted us, we would be able to reissue their certification letter with the ANSCO code for interpreter on it. So CPI is suitable for that purpose.
Very good. That's some very, very important information for this practitioner. Thank you for that. Okay, so this one's from an Oromo interpreter, certified provisional, pretty much along the same lines. I do have a lot of experience and education. Is there any way to promote myself from the current certified provisional interpreter to certified interpreter for the Oromo language? What can I do? Yeah,
it's unfortunately the same as several of the others. The demand's just not there for Oromo at that higher level at this stage. As a language group, highly important to Australia with a large humanitarian intake from Ethiopia, but there is only about 3,000 people at the last census that spoke it as a language at home in Australia. The demand's just not there at the moment for that higher level.
Thank you very much. I think this is the last one for you, Michael. Being in a regional location, there are no on-site classes and training for NAATI accreditation. I really felt the need for an on-site NAATI certified interpreter in our community for meeting their basic needs. Lately, I have applied for NAATI testing, but my application was rejected, asking me to produce an English test result. My question is, how could I be tested, and is it possible to have the site on our location for testing? What resources can be useful for me to undergo this testing? This is a Nepalese Bhutanese practitioner.
Yeah, so several things in that. The first one I would comment just on the English proficiency is that not specifically us, it would be able to be demonstrated through an IELTS exam or completion of training at an appropriate level within an Australian institution. Both of those would meet the English proficiency requirements. Training itself for the prerequisites for the test, the availability of online skill set courses out there. So I would recommend that the aspiring candidate look at those. It would be lovely if we could offer everything everywhere in Australia face-to-face, but I think if the pandemic's been good for anything, it's been good at giving the opportunity for video and remote learning and testing. So definitely some options there for training for them. And then very specifically for us for the testing part, we do all of our CT tests now online, which has opened it up to a broader range of people. We've run online interpreter testing via Melbourne when Melbourne was through its lockdown and we were unable to do face-to-face. Based on our learnings from Melbourne, we are investing in online platforms to offer interpreting tests to a broader range of people later next year. So we managed to get through Melbourne. We would like to improve the security and the stability of the platform. Although it was a good solution for a very immediate issue with COVID and the lockdowns in Melbourne, we would like to improve that experience. And we are definitely investing in that now. So we will be able to offer online tests, hopefully, sometime later next year in the interpreting certifications.
Thank you very much, Michael. Look, also, as someone who's a practitioner as well, I'd like to give a big thank you to all of you at NAATI just for adapting to the whole COVID situation this year and, turning these testing online. And I'm sure that there was a lot of investment made as well. And when we consider that the CT, the translator testing was until a few years ago still written on a piece of paper, right? And now we've gone to online testing across Australia. And I think that is a big accomplishment. So well done. And thank you all for doing that for NAATI and for us practitioners out there and aspiring practitioners.
No problem.
Thank you.
All right, look, that's all the questions that I have for this month's episode. So, like I said, you can access the form. The form is always available. It's always live. You can access it from the NAATI website as well as the Conversations Interpreting and Translating website. We also email it out to our practitioners as NAATI does as well. NAATI has a monthly newsletter, right, Tony? Tell us a bit about that.
Oops. So, yes, so we have a monthly newsletter. Goes out usually second week of the month and covers a whole heap of NAATI-related information. And obviously, we send out those questions as well. So you can access those questions there.
So in regards to that NAATI newsletter, a lot of newsletters I'm sure come through to practitioners' inboxes, and I think it's something that we should all be browsing when that does drop into our inbox, because in addition to NAATI related news, I think they get access to what kind of PD is available, anything,
that's right.
Anything that's coming up. And I think you just introduced a new blog as well, a NAATI blog, right?
That's right, the NAATI journal, yeah.
And they can get access and see what's going on in regards to the journal as well as all the new PD opportunities.
Yeah, so we highlight the upcoming PD opportunities, and obviously the blog covers everything from people writing personal experiences as certified practitioners, plus we get some academic and research articles as well. So it's quite a varied topic, and I think as per Aurelie's point, if people are writing and contributing to the blog, that counts towards their PD points.
Oh, well, there you go. Very good. So thank you very much. Like we said, the Ask NAATI form is always live there for you. So please go in and fill in one of those forms, ask your questions, and hopefully we'll have the NAATI panel in after Christmas, of course. So thank you again so much to CEO of NAATI, Mark Painting, Certification, Policy and Development Manager, Aurelie Sheehan, National Operations Manager, Michael Nemarich, and Communications Manager, Tony Murray. Thank you all for joining me today.
Thanks, Fatih.
Pleasure.
Yeah.
Cheers, Fatih.
Thank you. And of course, don't forget, you can watch the video from the NAATI YouTube channel, as well as the Conversations and Interpreting YouTube channel and podcast channels. And please subscribe and like those videos so that you can see notifications and also get news of the upcoming videos as well. Thank you very much again for joining me, and we'll see you in our next episode. All the best.
All Graduates Conversations Podcast.